It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission on Monday, November 18, 2019 to order. We'll have a roll call. Commissioner Varnell. Here. Commissioner Littlefield. Here. Commissioner Russell. Here. Commissioner Hale. Here, sir. Commissioner Schuline. Here. Commissioner Miller. Here. Commissioner George. Not available. And Commissioner Milner. Here. Thank you. Can I have a motion concerning, as we were, we'll let him get seated down here so he can speak on the mic. We just finished our roll call. We'd like to come back to Commissioner George. Here. We have Commissioner George. All right. I'd like to have a motion concerning the minutes of the October 21st, 2019 meeting, please.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Russell. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion? I'd just like to thank the staff for working hard on all the different things that occurred last month and having it right. So thanks a lot for your help, staff. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 21st, 2019 meeting from Commissioner Russell, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Reports on license and taxi record service will be in January. We go now to the consent item. There's 3 items on the consent docket. Is there anybody here to speak against 4A, 4B, or 4C? Okay, can we have a motion concerning the consent docket, please?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second? Second. And we have a second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on the consent docket? Do we have the 4 record companies here? Just to show of hands. 1, 2. Well, I'd just like to say thanks to all the record services for the hard work you do. 2 o'clock in the morning when it's freezing rain out there and doing all those kind of things. So thanks a lot for all you do out there for the safety of our cities. Anybody else have any comments on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner, I'm sorry. Oh, stand by. Oh, does somebody?
I think he made the motion.
Well, I heard it over here from Schuline. Sorry, I recognized him. All right. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Hale to approve the consent docket. Can I have your votes, please? All right, thank you all. We now go on to items for individual consideration. I'm going to call items A through J because they all deal with some information from our permits and ID unit. Somebody else, do you have information concerning items A through J?
Yes, I do. Let me get it here. Do you want me to just let y'all bring them up individually? I have owners that
have all A through J been cleared through your office?
Yes, I have accountability for everything. I have to explain some of the companies, and I have company owners that are here to explain their actions to. So
okay, but
if you just go through the items just one at a time, and I'll just.
But okay, so not everything is cleared.
Right, I got things I have to explain to you on certain companies.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then we'll go through each one then. The first one is 5A, dealing with license issued to Anna Trains Non-Emergency Medical Transportation, LLC. So, item 5A. Do we have somebody who wants to speak on item 5A? Oh, well, why don't we start with you on each one if we could, so you could update us on where it's at and if there's any concerns and anything that we have to hear. Well, yeah, why don't you use that one, and anybody else who wants to speak will come to that one.
Okay, on Annie's Medical Transport, this is the owner, Annie. She's compliant at this time. She's got her stuff turned. She started turning in her list again. This is on the ordinance violation on the monthly list. She misunderstood that she thought she was just one car, one owner, driver, that she didn't have to turn in the list every month. And I explained to her she had to. So she's in compliance right now.
Okay. Do you have anything extra you'd like to say?
No.
That's fine then. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote on each one? Can we wait? Okay. All right. Can I have a motion? Well, just a second. Let's ask staff. Any staff have anything on these?
No, I've got nothing. No further comments.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion concerning item 5A?
Motion to disapprove 5A.
Motion. Well, this was a
Second.
hearing, so we need to
Okay, well,
strike.
Strike. A motion to strike.
Motion to strike.
Motion to strike.
Because we have 4 options, you said earlier. What were the options again, if you could review?
So it would be, if you're going to be holding the hearing, you can go through and actually approve, revoke, suspend, take no action, striking, and then also defer to the next month.
So defer would go to next month. Striking is the same thing as there's no charge, there's no problem, everything's done. And what were the other ones?
If you were to actually move on the license itself, it could be approving a suspension or approving a revocation of the license itself. But then there's also the, if you wanted to also strike, I guess is the motion that's being considered currently.
Okay. So strike just means to
Strike the hearing.
To strike the hearing. Okay? So motion to strike.
I'd like to make a motion to strike.
Okay? We have a motion to strike item 5A.
Second.
From Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner George. Any discussion? Okay, motion to strike from Commissioner Hale and seconded by Commissioner George. Votes, please. Okay, item is struck. We go on now to item 5B, dealing with Backstage Limo Llc. Sergeant?
Come on up, Steve. Backstage was deferred till this month. He's in compliance as of now.
Okay, that's fine. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Motion to strike.
Motion to strike from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on 5B? Okay, motion to strike the item from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Votes, please. Okay, item is struck. Thank you. We go on now to item 5C concerning Genie Enterprise LLC, doing business as OKC Luxury Limo.
This company is out of business as of now. They don't have a current business license at all with the city.
Okay.
To clarify, you mean that they have withdrawn their license has terminated?
It's been terminated. It's been done.
Okay. So do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
I mean, we just strike, motion to strike?
Okay, motion to strike from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Russell. Do we have any discussion? Okay, a motion to strike item 5C from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item struck. We go on now to item 5D, dealing with Integrity Limo LLC. Sergeant?
Integrity Limo, they're in compliance at this time after last month's meeting.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Motion to strike?
Motion to strike from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on 5D?
Can I make one comment?
Okay, sir, do you have one of these forms up right now? We do? Okay, can I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes?
Brad Johnson with Integrity Limousine, 4419 Trails End Street, Northeast Piedmont, Oklahoma. I just want to thank Sergeant Bales. I want to thank the committee and the council. A lot of these regulations, some people just look at it and get frustrated because it's one more piece of bureaucracy. To me, I look at it as a safety measure that our city is putting in not only for my clients, but for the citizens of Oklahoma City. So thanks to you, Sergeant Bales.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline, to strike item 5D. Can I have your votes? Okay. We go on now to item 5E, concerning Pinnacle Limousine Service, LLC, doing business as Black Diamond Limousine Service. Sergeant?
I do not see the owner here. We have tried to make contact multiple times with that business, and he's not returning phone calls, and he's not giving us a list. He only has one limo in service at this time. He is current with all his licenses, but he's not giving us the monthly list.
Okay, staff, you have any input on that?
We don't have any comments.
Okay. Do we have there's nobody here to speak on item 5E? Okay. Do I have a motion concerning item 5E?
I'll make a motion to suspend their license until such time that they come into compliance.
Okay, can we have an open-ended suspension like that?
If the commission so desires. However, I would say it's technically not open-ended, as it could go just to the time that their license would be reviewed. At their anniversary date of that, they would be either going ahead and extending their license and or not doing so. But
Okay.
you could put it at that timeline if you prefer.
So we'd have to add that to the motion to say
You could.
it's that the motion is to suspend until they either fix it or they come to their renewal. Is that what you recommend?
You could.
Is that what you like, Commissioner Schuh? Okay, well,
What happens at renewal?
Their license is reviewed, and they would possibly, similar to what the company a couple of motions ago did, they actually decided not to renew their license, and or they could be brought to the Traffic Commission for that reason as well.
Okay, thank you.
okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to suspend Pinnacle Limousine Service, LLC, doing business as Black Diamond Limousine until they're in compliance with the list or until the time that they come up for renewal. Okay, do we have a second on that item?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner George. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to suspend Pinnacle Limousine Service, LLC, doing business as Black Diamond Limousine, seconded by Commissioner George, and is suspended until they either are in compliance or till they go to renew their license.
Yes.
And I have your votes, please. Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5F, concerning Reliable Medical Services, Inc. Sergeant, anything on 5F?
This company is a medical transport company. It does have a current business license with the city. The owner has come to my office, but he is refusing to be in compliance with getting his driver's permit and his vehicles decaled and inspected. I have numerous phone calls from other medical transport companies saying he's been operating illegally in the city. I just don't have enough evidence at this time to cite him. The owner is not here, and I have tried to make contact with him, and he is not returning my calls.
So when you say you can't cite him, meaning you haven't seen him doing business?
Correct, sir.
Or heard of him doing
I have
business?
to have good video or evidence or me catching him operating, having the transactions under the ordinance to cite him.
Okay. So anybody here speak on item 5F? All right. Do I have a motion concerning item 5F?
Motion to suspend till his license renews.
Okay.
Or he comes into compliance.
Okay, we have no. Okay.
So are you technically asking for a revocation of his license?
That would be revocation.
That would be,
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd
That's
like
the
to
term.
change my motion to make a motion for revocation.
okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale to revoke the license of Reliable Medical Services, Inc. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Varnell. Any discussion?
I've got a question. If a license is revoked, are they allowed just to apply, like revoke today, apply for a new one tomorrow, or how does that work?
There's a couple different steps that could be taken. They can actually appeal the decision. In that case, they would have time to submit their appeal to us. Then we would actually have to set the appeal hearing with License Appeals Board, and that could be a month or so, just timing to get everyone in the same room, because the owner, he or she, has a week to submit their time, week and a half, and then we would be submitting the time for the hearing. But if they do not appeal and it is revoked without an appeal within the next 10 days, then they would have a year before they could apply again.
It'd be a year before they could apply?
With a revocation.
I just wanted to explain why I went that direction for revocation instead of until they just come up into compliance. It seems like the sergeant has burned a lot of time trying to get this resolved without any cooperation from them at all. And I feel like it's just bogus to all of a sudden pop up and, oh, you're going to suspend me. Here's my list. I'm finally in compliance. It's the law. They need to comply with it, and if not, then they need to be done.
Okay, any other talk on 5F? We have a motion to revoke the license of Reliable Medical Services, 5F, from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item's approved. We go on now to item 5G concerning RNS Transportation Services, LLC, doing business as OKC Twister Cab. Sergeant?
Yes, this is a OKC Twister Cab. The owner is here, and he's in compliance as of now.
All right. Do we have a motion concerning item 5?
Move to strike.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to strike 5G. Do we have a second?
So moved.
So seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion on 5G? Okay, we have a motion to strike item 5G from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is struck. We go on now to 5H concerning Rogers Worldwide Transportation. Sergeant?
This is a limo company. Mr. Fott is here. He owns this company. As of now, he's in compliance right now with the list.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5H?
Move to strike?
We have a move to strike from Commissioner George. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any discussion on item 5H? Okay, we have a motion to strike item 5H from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.
We go on now to item 5I concerning Royalty Limo Llc. Sergeant?
This company is a limo company. As of now, this owner is still in the county jail, as far as I know. I'm keeping up to date on his charges. I can't discuss them at this point, but he's not operating, so I'll leave it up to you on what you want to do with his business license.
Okay. Anybody here to speak on item 5I? Okay. Do I have a motion concerning item 5I?
I move to revoke.
We have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to revoke the license of Royalty Limo item 5I. Do we have a second on that? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on this? So by revoking, as the counselor said in the last one, he gets out of jail, he's ready to go back to work, he wouldn't be able to go back to work, he wouldn't be able to get in compliance, and he'd be out of his job for a year. So let's say he gets out of jail in a month or two, his limo's ready to go, all he has to do is submit his list to get in compliance, he has his license, he would be ready to go to work. Council, do you have input?
I would just say there are potentially extenuating circumstances that we are unaware of if he would be able to go back. I'm just,
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just depending on the charges.
Right,
and-
right.
And actual criminal history or whatever, which is not our requirements, that's licensing, or somebody, sorry.
it technically could be a part of, it could come before the commission again if there were criminal issues behind.
Okay?
Under current ordinance, he's not, I'll give you, he has around 25 counts on him right now. I do have to have a conviction to do my part as the inspector to revoke his license, but you as the commission have to revoke his business license or suspend it. So if he does not get convicted and he comes back, then yes, he can go back into operation. If he gets convicted, then I have to go through the process of revoking his driver's permit, which is, that's all I can do on that side, and it's up to the commission to revoke his business license if he's convicted. So that's why I left it up to your decision on this. But he's, like I said, he's still currently in jail as far as I know.
Okay? So that was my only comment, that if he does get out of jail, does get back, there was no charge, there was nothing found guilty or whatever, he wouldn't be able to go back to work on the license that he currently has.
Is he the sole driver in this company, or does he have other drivers?
He's a sole one. He has 2 vehicles and just him as the driver.
He has a temporary driver?
I would have to double check my records.
No, I may have misheard you. I couldn't.
He just has one, as far as I know, he's just a driver owner for this company and has 2 vehicles.
And has 2 vehicles?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's a tricky one.
So that's my only comment to the motioners and the seconders. Does the motion still stand?
Is it possible to do a revocation on the condition of what, if there are any charges that would put him in a position where he'd have to be revoked otherwise?
I would recommend a deferral instead, and defer it to December or the next meeting, so that maybe more information would come to light that could be considered.
Or we could do like we did on the other one, we suspend it until he either comes in compliance or comes for a renewal, which is what we did on the other one. In that way, if he does come back and he submits his letter, he's back to work, and if for some reason he's not, and it comes up for his time and he's not able to file, then it goes away. Am I right? Is that how that goes, ma'am?
Good.
That'll work. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it.
Well,
Can I,
well, let me go to the seconder. Are you okay with him rephrasing the? Yes. Okay.
can I add to this?
Okay, yes, sir.
I'm in contact with the detective on this case, and they did inform me that he was trying to sell his 2 vehicles as for to pay for his bills on this case.
Well, yeah, but I think we just need to go with the data right in front of us. So a recommended wording would be that we would suspend the license of Royalty Limo LLC until they're in compliance with all the paperwork that's necessary, or until his license comes up for renewal.
I amend my motion to suspend it until the paperwork becomes current, or until the date of renewal of his license.
Okay. So we have a change to the motion and the second?
Second stays.
Okay, the second stays. So any more talk on item 5I? Okay, for 5I, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Hale, to suspend Royalty Limo LLC until they're in compliance or till their time of license renewal. Okay, can I have your votes, please? Okay, we go on now to item 5J concerning Transport LLC. Sergeant?
The owner is not here. I have been in contact with him. He says he has not been operating due to family illness in the family. I do not know when he'll be returning back to operation again.
And is he a sole driver again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, can I have a motion concerning item 5J?
So he didn't give you, he's not in compliance?
No, he has a current business license as of now. Everything is done. He's just not operating. So he told me he's not going to send me a monthly list until he gets back in operation.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion on 5J?
Suspend till they become in compliance.
Okay, we have, okay,
Or until the renewal.
Right. Till they become compliant or until renewal.
Thank you, Commissioner.
okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale to suspend item 5J, which is Transport LLC, until they get in compliance or the renewal of their license. Do we have a second?
Second.
You pushed a button, so a second by Commissioner Russell. Okay, any discussion on 5J? Okay, we have a motion to suspend item 5, to suspend the license for Transport LLC until they're in compliance or the renewal time of their license by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Have your votes, please. All right, very good. Are we done with you now, Sergeant?
I have one thing to add. Last month, we suspended United Taxi. That was on 10/21. Actually, I ended up getting a cancellation notice of their insurance the same day. I have double-checked with that insurance company, and they, as of 11/7, they still have no insurance. They are suspended till the 22nd, actually, when we finally got the letter out. So we'll wait to see what happens with that, if he comes back and has insurance. But if when they get suspended like that or revoked and come back, they have to still bring me 5 cars with 5 drivers to start operation in the city. So we'll see here in next week what happens.
All right, thank you very much.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Sergeant, for your
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, we go on now to item 5K from the Traffic Management Division to consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance relating to motor vehicles and traffic to amend Division 1 generally of Article 2 of Chapter 32 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 by amending Section 32-33, Manager's Authority to make regulations. Anybody out there wanted to speak on item 5K? We'll defer to the staff here. Staff?
Okay, this is an item that we're bringing forward. What you're looking at is an amendment to 3233, which would allow the Public Works Director or their designee to also be able to make an emergency traffic regulation, whether a temporary traffic regulation. Permanent ones would require action on the part of the Commission, as they have historically. What this proposal does is it allows the Public Works Department to be directly involved in making a regulatory traffic control change on a temporary basis for the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And we were talking about this ahead of the meeting. An example I can give you is several years back when the city had widened Northwest 192nd Street, its grade was lowered at an intersection of Danforth Farms and Dartmoor. When that happened, sight distance went below the city's minimum safe regulations, and so what we had to do is we had to come back we had to go through the city manager's office, get stop signs installed. Then we had to come through the traffic commission to have stop signs installed, and ultimately the commission has approved a traffic signal to go into that intersection, because there's no other way around addressing that decision sight distance shortfall. So all this amendment does is it allows Public Works to be one of the first bodies that can look at and make an emergency regulation. Of course, another thing to consider too is, Public Works is also a first responder in the case of like natural disaster, and if we needed to make additional regulations because we're like in the trenches addressing these things, it would allow us that ability to help address some of those things in short term. And so we're asking for the Commission's consideration to forward a recommendation to City Council that would allow Public Works Director to also participate in making temporary traffic regulations on an emergency basis. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on this proposed ordinance.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5K?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion. Probably would have preferred they made the traffic engineer the guy, but I'll go with what's recommended by staff.
Well,
I can tell you that the way that the ordinance is structured, it includes the city engineer / public works director or their designee. And I visited with our public works director, and his intention is to put like a standing memo in a file in which he would specify his designee, and chances are it would be in my office. Okay.
Okay, so
I'll second that, Tim.
So you just have a motion to approve with no other comment? Okay.
Motion to recommend,
Recommend.
not
to-
approve.
Move forward.
Well, we have to consider recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Miller to approve item 5K, which is a recommendation to the City Council. And we have a second by Commissioner George. Do we have any talk on item 5K? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5K from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner George. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5L, Traffic Management Division, to consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance relating to motor vehicles and traffic, amending Article 7 of Chapter 32 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 by amending Section 32-237, designation of restricted turns. Anybody out there on 5L? Okay, staff?
Okay. This particular ordinance has got its roots in a lot of what we do in support of our school systems. And in particular, there are a lot of locations around the city where we've got access restrictions which are restricted by certain days and times, and likewise we've got turn restrictions that are also dictated by days and times. And a lot of these things are tied to school districts. Well, just for example, like Oklahoma City Public Schools, they have been making a significant number of changes to their schools. They've been converting some elementary schools to middle schools, and they've been closing other elementaries or adjusting their times. What this ordinance change will do is it will still allow the commission to consider whether or not there should be a turn restriction or an access restriction in place, but it allows staff to be able to make alterations to the effective times in order to accommodate changes to the school schedule. Because, when you consider how many districts there are and how many schools there are in the city, all this does is it allows us to be more responsive to those changes. And to give you an example how this would work, school zone warning signals. When the operating times for those are set, this body will approve whether or not a flashing warning signal should be installed for a school, but it never has a say as to its operating hours. We handle that administratively. This would be tying like access restrictions, especially around schools, to function much in the same way. It would be an administrative decision to tailor the times on those signs to reflect the needs of the school, just like the school zone flashers are operated. So we'd ask for your consideration on this proposed ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5L?
I'll make the motion.
To approve item 5L. And do we have a second for 5L? We have a second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on 5L? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5L, which is a recommendation to Oklahoma City Council from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5M, Shay Varnell, Ward 1 Traffic and Transportation Commissioner. So, of course, Commissioner Varnell is going to step off of the horseshoe here. We'll go ahead and wait for that, and he's our first speaker. So let the record show that the Commissioner has recused himself on this item. Thank you, Counselor. Do we have anybody want to speak? Have we got one right here? Yes, sir. I have your form. You have up to 5 minutes. Can I have your name, address, please?
My name is Shay Varnell. I live at 10613 Whitechapel Street in Oklahoma City. Before you have my application to reduce the speed limit along MacArthur Boulevard from Wilshire to 82nd Circle. This is a 3-block stretch of road.
So just a second, what was that word you said you wanted to reduce or increase?
Pardon me, increase, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. To increase the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour along MacArthur Boulevard from Wilshire to 82nd Circle. This 3-block stretch of road is very different from the other 10 miles, either 5 miles to the north or 5 miles to the south, where it's 40 miles an hour all the way along MacArthur. It's different from, the speed limit's different. It's also different from similar areas along May Avenue and Council that don't change speed limits when they go around a small curve. And that's why I'm requesting a speed limit increase.
All right, thank you. Just for the record, let me read in item 5M. I don't think I did. To consider a request to change the speed limit on North MacArthur Boulevard between West Wilshire Boulevard and Northwest 82nd Circle from 30 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour. Staff, do you have input?
All right, you've got our comments before you. In preparation for this case, we conducted some extensive speed studies. Our spot speed study that was on this particular section of MacArthur where it's posted 30 miles an hour, we did a study that covered 761 vehicles. Of the 761 vehicles that we observed, 37, which was about 5% of the vehicle total, were in compliance in as much as they were driving 30 miles an hour or less in this particular section. The observed 85th percentile speed on this particular stretch of road is 42 miles an hour, which is reasonably close to the limit as posted to the south in the city of War Acres and to the north of this particular location. We ran the Bella-like credible speed limit analysis on this and determined that that drivers are responding to the built environment in a manner which is consistent with this predicted method, which would indicate that about a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit would be appropriate on it. We also did an extensive review of the collision experience on it, because there's one public street called Canal Road, which is on the east side of MacArthur, and there is a closed housing facility that's also on the east side of MacArthur, on the north side of Canal Road. Our 20-year crash experience only found about 8 collisions that were recorded in the vicinity of this particular curve. So given the fact that the majority of drivers are currently driving comparable speed as posted on MacArthur to the north and south of this area, the low collision experience over the past 20 years, adjusting the speed limit upward to meet what drivers are actually doing would probably be an appropriate action. So action on this item will be at the discretion of the Commission. Staff would note that if the Commission does vote to approve this, we will post some, when we take down or change the speed limit signs, we will post some advisory curve ahead signs, and they'll have supplemental reduced speed warning plaques that would just advise drivers that it would be to their benefit to reduce speed, but it does not necessarily require them to. So I'm happy. I can answer any questions that you might have.
And a motion wouldn't have to mention that.
No, that would just be an administrative item.
I have a question. The side road symbol sign that's in advance of the Park Lawn townhomes, is that still functional?
Oh, that advanced warning flasher? Yeah, it is functioning.
Okay, so there is traffic coming out of,
No, that particular facility is closed. When we were out there conducting our on-site reviews, there's been no construction activity there in recent history. There's absolutely no sign of any work going on in the interior. Some work had started on it. It's been repainted, and they had started replacing some of the doors and windows, but there are places where, second-story windows have yet to be replaced, and so the entire facility is gated, locked, and it's vacant, and there's no sign of any activity right now.
So are the signs still needed?
For this particular need, I would say no, but
No.
There's no telling when that may or may not reopen. They can come down, that warning sign can come down someday in the future if it turns out that this facility would be permanently closed.
Well, I was thinking they might be more useful on the curve warning signs than they would here.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5M?
So the whole reason for the 30 miles an hour was the curve? There's no other reason to have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit there?
Well, this particular item was approved by the commission in, I believe, 1976. And in our research of the records, there was a passing reference to it being a problem area, but it wasn't any more specific than that.
It does feel a little narrow on that curve right there, though. I mean, not that necessarily 40s change much, but especially since everybody's driving 40 or 42. But it is kind of a narrow four lane or five, really, right? Or turn lane, like right on the main part of the curve, the hard part of the curve. Seems pretty narrow stretch.
Yeah, the street is pretty much consistently about 44 feet wide, so we've got a series of 11-foot lanes that run pretty much from the Northwest Expressway north on MacArthur.
Does narrow there?
No, I'd about to say ideally you'd like to have like 12-foot wide lanes, so you'd be looking at maybe a 48-foot wide section as opposed to 44. But
narrow lane.
But
Okay.
you know, the over on May Avenue where it's posted 40 as well, May Avenue is rather narrow too. It's typically running about 11-foot lanes, so it'd be a very comparable example to what you're looking at here.
All right. Move approval of the application.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5M. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion on 5M? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5M from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Vote, please. Okay, item is approved. All right, Counselor, what's the term when he comes back now? There's no big fancy legal term? Okay. Let the record show that Commissioner Varnell has returned to the commission. Thank you, Counselor. We go on now to item 5N, Tamaha, to consider a request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of South Independence Avenue, South Land Avenue, and Southwest 59th Street. Would you like to come on up and talk, please? I have your form here. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. We're going to back in 5 minutes for three of us, if that's okay. My name is Tamaha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am an applicant for the petition that you have heard from Mr. Kula. And alongside with me is my pastor, Father Gregory Nguyễn Việt from St. Andrew Catholic Church. And on the left-hand side with me is the Vietnamese American community in Oklahoma City, the chairman.
Okay, sir, if they want to talk, we need to make sure to have them fill out one of these forms later, and that's fine if they would like to. If not, it's free for you to talk if you'd like to talk about it.
They can speak, right?
They just have to fill out one of these forms afterwards.
Okay. Our intersection at our St. Andrew Catholic Church has suffered some accident, and our parish consists of almost 2,000 parishioners. And the weekends Bible school, we have almost 500 students. The intersection got some heavy traffic during the peak time. We see a lot happening, and the recommendation from the report that I've seen here that 5 accidents from last year alone, 4 of them recommend that the traffic signal to be installed to minimize the accident. So that's why we are here, to see if you consider that would be something can be approved for it to happen.
Okay. If you guys would like to say anything different, that's fine. Just fill out a form when you're done. Yep. Yeah, please, if you'd like to. Let me have your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Michael Doe. I'm the president of the Vietnamese American community here in Oklahoma City. And the address is 1201 Northwest 30th Street in Oklahoma City. The reason I'm here is I'm supporting St. Andrew Catholic Church. 8 years ago, they only have about 800 parishioners, And now, 8 years later, they have about 2,000 parishioners, over 500 children attending Bible school on Saturday and Sunday. And as a president of Vietnamese community, we see that they are growing, and we are very excited. They're not only doing the Lunar Moon Festival, they do the festival for the parish, also for the community in the surrounding area. And so our Vietnamese community love to go to their church and participate the event that they have. And we concerned about the safety for the children because they're crossing the Southwest 59th Street, and you know there's a lot of traffic because when they exit off I-44 and they speed down toward Main Street, and if you're crossing over without the traffic light, it's so dangerous. And you know, like last year they have a festival and over 5,000 people go and attend. It's a 3-day event. And on behalf of the Vietnamese community, we would respectfully ask the commissioner to consider the traffic light or some type of device that help, regulate the traffic for the safety of our children, for the community, also for the parish and the neighborhood as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Sir, did you want to speak? Which is fine. Just make sure to fill out one of the forms when you're done. And let me have your name and your address, please, sir.
Okay, my name is Father Gregory Nguyen. I'm a pastor of St. Andrew Yonglak Catholic Church. I have been there for 4 years. In the last 4 years, I myself have seen many accidents happen there. My concern is about the safety of our parishioners, the children going to school on Sunday, weekend, and the neighborhood there. So that's my concern about their safety. As myself, I've seen many accidents happen there. Yeah. I hope that you would consider the traffic light there with to prevent the accidents.
All right, very good. If you two could fill out a form while we press on. Anybody else wanting to speak on
Thank
item
you so much.
5N? You can just fill it out right over here. Okay, staff, do you have input on 5N?
All right, you've got our comments before you. We went ahead and using the manual on uniform traffic control devices, performed a traffic signal warrant analysis at this particular intersection. Based on the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, we ran our analysis and found that this particular location doesn't meet any of the 9 traffic or signal warrants in the manual. We did do a further review where we looked at a combination of warrants for condition A, which is for conditions A and B, which is using the 8-hour vehicular volume warrant, which reduces the traffic volume threshold for considering the use of a signal. And we found that there was not a sufficient side street volume on Independence and Land in order to meet warrants for use of a traffic signal at this particular intersection. So at this point in time, since the collision history is not such that would indicate that a traffic signal is needed at this time, and the traffic volumes are not at the point where they would need to be to warrant a signal, we don't have cause to recommend the installation of a signal. But should the Commission approve the request for a signal, staff's going to recommend that the approval include widening Southwest 59th Street for left turn lanes. So subject to staff recommendations, the action before you is to approve or not approve the request for an installation of a signal at Independence and Land Avenue at Southwest 59th Street. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have relative to this application.
Do we have a motion concerning item 5N?
Well, I would what other remedies, they said besides the light, any other remedies that might be available to, like the warning type signals that we had up there on Wilshire, to notify people of a street intersecting or possible crosswalks?
There's ample decision sight distance. I mean, you can see there are no view obstructions on approach into this particular intersection. Therefore, while it is possible to post like intersection warning signs, it's not really going to provide a driver with anything meaningful as far as, should I change is there an intersection coming up I should be aware of? No, everything is clearly visible as you approach, so While that could be some, a gesture towards trying to improve safety, staff doesn't have any reason to think that it would make any difference. I can appreciate the sentiment for doing something like that, but it's not going to change performance of the intersection. Like I said, there were 5 collisions that were reported there in 2018, four of which were like right-angle type collisions, which would be considered a correctable type. The manual says that in order to consider there's warrant 7, which is a collision experience, and these are just baseline numbers, but they said that you should have at least 5 collisions of a type that would be considered correctable using a traffic control device like a traffic signal or stop signs in an intersection like this. And this intersection had 4. The long-term history is also such that it does not meet the collision warrant experience for this particular intersection as well.
Mr. Shaw, what about pedestrian crossing? We have sidewalks, it looks like.
Right. When our staff was out there conducting its counts, we were not in a position where we noticed any significant pedestrian crossing activity that would warrant or justify the use of any form of signalized control to go across 59th Street at this location either. Because pedestrian crossing volumes are also one of the criteria used in the MUTCD for evaluating an intersection for use of like signalized traffic control. And there wasn't the pedestrian activity observed. Now, the one things that the applicants talked about was, specifically related to like church activities, but our studies were conducted weekdays from Monday through Friday. And as a general rule, this particular intersection does not meet any warrants for considering, or that would indicate that a traffic signal is needed at this particular intersection during ordinary weekday conditions.
I have a question. Do they have any kind of police enforcement on church days, on Sundays, or does someone helps get traffic in and out of the parking lot at the church? So you do have...
Yes. On the Saturday and Sunday, we do have security on the parking only to make sure people park in the right location. But for police officers, we don't have that luxury. And for children to crossing, it's really highly dangerous because if you look at the picture, there's a lot of traffic that's going from, I-44, and they just speed out the way, and that make it, scary. From the neighborhood, when we exit out, it's safe, but for the people, for the amount of car that passing is dangerous, and most of them doing 45 to 50. So.
Okay, so you have somebody in the parking lot helping, but you don't ask or contract out to the cops to work that one intersection.
No, they don't have the.
And then is there a good amount on the weekends probably of walk-in traffic across the street compared to like weekdays where there's probably not?
We're more concerned about the weekend. That's where the most traffic is. On the weekdays, there is the evening mass is about 200-300 people, so it doesn't have a lot of children. But on the weekend, that's where we have a lot. They have a lot of children and parishioners, and also the community come to the church.
But do they walk, or is it all driving?
Some of them walk across the street, live around the neighborhood as well.
So a small number compared to the 2,000, just a small number walk?
We can do a little stick on that if you want to know in detail how many family in the area, but a lot of parishioners live around 59, 44, 29, and 89 Street where the Asian market are. So that's where they go shopping and close to the church. So.
Okay.
Do you have any other question?
No. Do you have a question or a comment?
Comment.
I don't have a question.
Thank you so much.
It seems like the commission a couple of years ago heard a very similar situation where that church had contracted out with a police officer to direct traffic to northwest Oklahoma City just off of Portland or the highway. And they had come before us asking for a traffic light, and they were using, like I say, police officers to direct traffic on Saturdays and Sundays. We went ahead and approved that if they were willing to pay for the light.
That's correct. I think the location you're talking about is Columbia Drive at Northwest 150th Street, and that's for Crossings Community Church.
It did not meet any of the warrants, and also be advised that even if we approve this, it could be 2-3 years before they were actually installed?
Probably longer, because at this point in time, it would be accepted as an approved but unfunded project, and right now we're just collecting a list of projects that will probably be submitted for consideration once there are surplus monies from the current bond programs, because right now the monies that are identified in those bond programs, those identified projects have to be built, and there's a contingency that's also built into the bond program as well to cover any increased costs for construction for whatever reason. But those projects need to be constructed first, and then maybe at the end of the bond program, if there are funds available, then they might be able to be used towards projects like this. However, there are others that this commission has approved since that time, too, that are currently sitting on the unfunded projects list.
It seems like one option would be to hire police officers to regulate traffic there. Even though it does not meet the warrants, I would be willing to make a motion to approve, even though it doesn't qualify, if the churches would be willing to fund the project.
If they fund the project, would it still be put on the unfunded projects list? Or?
Well, it will go to the unfunded projects list. But if the church or some other agency decided that they wanted to fund the project, that would it would just accelerate its construction schedule. Because at the time that somebody would want to fund a project, we would leave it up to them to develop the construction plans for the work, and then it would be built in much in the same way. So the commission was to approve a traffic signal requested for a large commercial development. Just for an example, say something like a Walmart. Well, Walmart Corporation will typically get approval for something where they demonstrate there's going to be sufficient demand, but then they will also undertake its construction. So it could be done much like that. And right now there's another neighborhood that's recently contacted me. Earlier this year, the commission had approved a traffic signal at Hidden Creek Boulevard, Northwest 122nd Street, and that neighborhood is now looking at rather than, because it's an approved but unfunded project, I think they're considering ways of trying to come up with the construction funds to get the plans and specifications done and to pay for its construction.
Looking at this photograph of that intersection, it's going to take quite a bit of funds to put in left turn bays and do a signal there. I see some drainage there that's going to really be expensive. So I don't know if you want to, would you even think of trying to fund that yourself? No.
I can tell you that based on our current construction costs for traffic signals and for roadway widening, a project of this type, if the city were to undertake it, would probably be in the neighborhood of about $750,000.
And so you might want to consider, it might be better to wait till it warrants and gets approved by this commission rather than to say, okay, you can do it, but you got to pay for it.
Is there any other option to slow the traffic down on the 59th Street until there's more funding available?
Well,
the speed is causing the problem.
That they were talking about that some other church was doing was hiring a cop on the weekends during your high peak hours so they could help move that traffic at that intersection.
That would be very helpful.
So that's something that you could do, is to contact them and try to set that up.
Yes, and would that be financed by the city of
No, that's something that it's an off-duty cop that you would pay.
Okay.
There's a section in the force that'll coordinate those kind of requests, and they would put out and find a cop that would be available Saturdays at 2 till 4, whatever, and then you would just pay them. Is that right, Captain?
So we have to pay the officer directly?
Well,
no.
Captain.
Would that be funded by the city? No. Okay.
So our special events unit is able to schedule that for schools, private businesses, churches, and I'd be happy to give you that information if you wanted to consider it after the meeting.
But yes, it's part of your funding. You would go ahead and pay for that. And then that way the cop would be out there and he would be able to manage all that traffic and just make sure it's safe for that limited amount of time. Kind of like what you do with your parking force. It would be the same kind of concept. Yes, sir.
What about the option of just installing a simple pole with the flashing light, let's say, well, slow down, or flashing yellow light, something like that? East-west, mostly come out from going west. Some people I've seen them go over 40 miles an hour. 50, I've seen it, so I don't know. That's something that's considered probably cheaper.
Well, if there are certain times of the day in which case you have observed speeding like that, because when we went out and conducted our speed study, we were out on the 28th of October. We were out there for about an hour recording speeds, and the highest speed that we recorded is 55. It's posted 40 through that area. So if there are times of the day when you think that you would need to or want to have enforcement in place, you can work with the police department's uniform support division and give them days and times when you'd like to have them go out there and basically do speed limit enforcement.
Would there be a possibility to have a flashing light that we can turn on during the Mass, like on the weekend, on Saturday or Sunday when we have big event close to the church, so in that way we're warning for the people to slow down?
The only regulatory flasher we have like that is reserved for school zones, and you have to be a school that serves students basically kindergarten through 12th grade. I mean, you have to be a true school. And do you operate a private school? Or do you just have
I remember on Highway 9, when it's close to the intersection, there's a yellow flashing light. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're just talking at the intersection, up above, a little yellow light that would be flashing.
It's possible, although it's possible to put a warning flasher out there like that, it's unlikely that it'll have any meaningful change on speed.
Okay.
Because it is just a warning flasher. It would not be regulatory.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, so we're talking about item 5N, and we're ready for a motion concerning item 5N.
Well, I don't think I heard if they were willing to pay for the light.
Okay, well, if you could come up and just give a good answer on that.
I don't know if you caught what the commissioner was asking you, whether or not you all wanted to pay for the traffic signal, in which case he would say yes to it. But
did you say the cost for it will be 3.5?
It could be.
No, he said three-quarters.
$750,000 or so.
Okay.
Well, that's if the street gets widened.
Which is part of the requirement.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have to.
So the estimation is $750,000 to put in the light?
Right, and that's just an approximation.
Approximately.
And would that be for the church to come up with to pay for it?
Right.
Would there be any fund from the city to fund that?
Well, that's where we were talking about, there's an unfunded list, all the recommendations, if we were to say, yes, it's approved, it would go on that unfunded, and there's already ones in front of it, and there's already ones that are being built, and it really comes down to whatever's money left over at the end of the year, and it may take 5 or 10 years before it would get funded.
Yes, sir.
So,
well, we definitely will talk to our parishioner, but the the we come up with that money is so hard because we're still making payment from, the remaining balance of the church, which is about $2 million. So it's quite hard.
But an option is to go ahead and talk to them and maybe have somebody come out during the peak hours, during the weekends, when you're very concerned that the 2,000 people are all leaving at the same time, and just have some sort of help at that time.
Yes, sir.
That's a possibility for you. Yes, sir.
I have seen the accident mostly happen in the evening, around 4 o'clock to 7 p.m., and our concern is just for the safety of the people. That's all.
And the captain wrote the notes down, and he's going to notify those units in that area to look at those times and to be around there for those speeders. So, but that's nothing that'll be every day, that's nothing that'll be every week, it's just whenever they're available they may go out there. Am I right, Captain?
And usually on Sunday between 9 to about 12, that's where the most traffic. And on Saturday from 2 to about 7.
Right. And when do you see the speeders mainly that's driving that road? When do you see the high speed? During those times also? Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So we need a motion on 5N.
I make a motion
to disapprove it.
Oh, he has his...
I'll second it.
To disapprove.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Varnell to disapprove item 5N, which is seconded by Commissioner Miller. Do we have any discussion, any further discussion on it? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove 5N from Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Votes, please. Okay, item is disapproved. We go on now to item 5O. Joe Neal, architect, Neal Architecture, to consider request to, 1, establish 60-degree angle parking within a proposed setback parking area on the east side of North Florida Avenue from approximately 45 feet south to 96 feet south of the south curb line of Northwest 23rd Street, and 2, establish 1 reserved parking space for the physically disabled with a proposed setback parking area on the east side of North Florida Avenue from approximately 45 feet south to 63 feet south of the south curb line of Northwest 23rd Street. Hello, sir. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Joe Neal, 700 Waterwood Drive, and that's in Norman, Oklahoma. And I'm architect for this project. The owner is Luan Rotana. She has the Thai restaurant just down the street, which is pretty good. And the 2 lots that you see. And during the course of this, I've been working with her for 10 years. And we've went through a lot of ideas. We did a demo, a lot of ideas of what can we do with this corner. Well, in the process, in the last probably year and a half, year, something like that, the urban overlay zone came in, which is transitioning that whole strip, which really needs it, moving buildings to the front, parking in the back, and it also, a couple of little things that happened. To make this project work, by moving it forward, which the owner loves, we came up with a really good design. We're really excited about it. We've got this, we got approval from the planning department, dependent on approval from this board, this commission, on those parking spaces. And we're asking that you approve these things. The traffic guys are great. They put together a beautiful presentation for you. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. So with that said.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else to talk on 5O? All right, staff.
All right. So, I'm sorry, this is a new application for you. Previously, you had seen this item as a request for 70-degree angle parking. What you're looking at now is a 60-degree angle parking submittal. The proposed depth, perpendicular depth for this particular parking area is 21 feet. The applicant's proposing the use of 8-foot wide, 8-foot 6-inch wide parking spaces, and one of which will be reserved for the physically disabled. So if this body recommends these changes for approval, then the motion will need to include that it be subject to the dedication of public right-of-way or roadway easement sufficient to fully cover the proposed setback parking areas and sidewalks, and that the applicant bear the responsibility for the preparation of public improvement construction documents and take care of the construction for ramps, sidewalks, and the parking areas as requested. The staff is going to note that the Commission and the City Council's actions on these will not assign this exclusive use of these particular parking spaces to the adjoining use. They'll be freely available for use by the public. At this time, the applicant hasn't requested any time-limited restrictions to be applied to any of the angle parking spaces. So subject to staff recommendations, it would be to approve or not approve the request to establish the 60-degree angle parking and the reserve parking for the physically disabled on the east side of Florida Avenue south of Northwest 23rd Street. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
If you come up to Mike, just want to make sure you're okay with the 3 recommendations from the staff.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're totally fine with it. We'll give you the immediately prepare those and have those to you. And the reason we did 70 at first, just for your information, there's some telephone poles and some guy wires, and we had to jockey this thing in there. We were proposing 5, and apparently the city prefers 60 because that's what we kept coming up to, so I was working with them. We massaged the drive and found another parking space, so we're only asking for 4 out there, and that allowed us to go to 60. So just for your information.
Very good. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion concerning 5-0?
Mr. Chair, I move the application be approved with the 2 items noted in the staff's recommendation.
I counted 3. Was it 2? Or was it 2 of them, 1 of them? There's 2.
It's just subject to the 2 items listed in the summary of staff recommendations.
Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner George to approve the 2 staff recommendations on 5-0 to approve. Any talk on 5-0? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner George, which includes the 2 staff recommendations to approve item 5-0. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5P. Staff, why don't you just talk about it real quick?
Okay, 5P is no longer needed since it was the same request for the same area except using 70-degree angle parking spaces with the Commission's forwarding a recommendation to City Council for the 60-degree spaces. Staff is going to recommend that you strike item 5P from further consideration.
Okay, motion on 5P.
Move to strike.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to strike item 5P from Commissioner George, and it was seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Any discussion, 5P? Okay, motion to strike item 5P from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is struck. We go on now to item 5Q. Josh Melwick, P.E., Senior Engineer, Atkins North America, Inc., to consider 1, removal of metered parking on the west side of South Walker Avenue from approximately 215 feet north to 240 feet north of the north curb line of West Reno Avenue, and 2, remove metered parking on the east side of South Walker Avenue from approximately 130 feet north to 240 feet north of the north curb line of West Reno Avenue. Hi, sir. Can I have your name, address? You have up to 5 minutes.
Josh Malwick, 350 David L. Bourne Boulevard, Norman, Oklahoma. Basically, this is a continuation of the Bike Walk OKC plan. Right now, we've got Walker striped from from Grand up to I-40. This will continue from I-40 up to California. And a part of that, to tie it in, eliminates 6 parking stalls on the east side and 2 on the west side.
All right. Thank you very much, staff.
Okay, we don't have any supplemental recommendations on this particular item, as Mr. Malik indicated. What is happening is for the extension of bike lanes on Walker Avenue, Walker is being restriped. It's going from a 4-lane section to have 1 northbound, 1 southbound lane. The center will be reserved for left turns, and what used to be a 4th traffic lane will be divided evenly on the east and west sides of the roadway to function as a bike lane, which will continue on to the south with other bike lanes already installed as part of this project PCO 659, which is implementing some of the bike lane improvements proposed as part of Oklahoma City's Bike Walk OKC.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5Q?
I move the application be approved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve 5Q. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a second by Commissioner Milner. Any discussion on 5Q? The only thing I have is anytime we lose parking like that, was that parking needed for some different businesses or anything in that area that maybe upset that we're taking parking away, or residents or anything like that? Sir, do you know? Because, metered parking is so that way somebody could park there, put some money in, stay there an hour or two, and then leave. So it was there for some reason. Now that we're going to take it away, is that a concern?
We didn't do any counts to see how often vehicles were parked there. Just driving it personally, you typically see it used as a driving lane.
Okay. All right. Well, that was my only comment was, All right. So any other discussion on item 5Q? All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Milner to approve item 5Q. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Item is approved. We go on now to 5R, Lance Benham, to consider a request to change the speed limit on East Hefner Road between North Bryant Avenue and the North I-35 service road from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles an hour. We have several people here who want to speak on this item, so we'll start with Mr. Benham, and then we can go ahead and go with some other people. So, sir, if I can have your name and your address.
My name's Lance Benham. I live at 3775 East Hefner in Oklahoma City. And this item is really one of two that we talked about in the July meeting. You will recall that we asked for and received from the Commission a authorization to impose a two-axle or greater than two-axle restriction. And I want to thank the Commission for passing that restriction and the city for posting the signs pretty quickly after the meeting. I want to give you a little feedback on this because it may be instructive for you in the future. I visited with Commissioner Miller about this a little bit in the past, but the sign that was put up says vehicles in excess of two axles prohibited except local services. It's a different sign than what is on 122nd Street, just a mile north. And we were all hoping, the neighbors were hoping that we'd start to see a reduction of the heavy vehicles, the 18-wheelers and the dump trucks. We continue to have a big issue trying to get in and out of our driveways. And after about 2 weeks, we didn't see much of a reduction at all. The truckers were pretty much just operating with impunity. So we wrote to the Oklahoma City Action Center and requested, as possible, police patrols. And the police responded. I can tell you that at the time it was, now it's Deputy Chief Balderrama at the Spring Lake Division, but at the time he was, I think, captain anyway. They assigned patrol cars, and it was really great to see them out there. Unfortunately, they were pretty much catching speeders, and that's okay, but we were curious, and we had 3 different neighbors interact with different patrol officers. I actually talked to one of the officers on a motorcycle at one point because we noticed that as the 18-wheelers would plow by, they wouldn't pull them over. And we asked them why, and they all commented that they didn't have clarity on how to enforce the term except local services. And each of them made a representation that, local services could be a mile away, or, what is the definition of local services? So we tried to explain to the officers that there's actually an ordinance with very specific and prescriptive language. Didn't have much effect. So we went back to the Action Center, and they encouraged us to talk to Captain Balderrama, which we did, and I sent him an email with the actual language. It took about 2 months, but we have begun to see the heavy trucks, the 18-wheelers, get pulled over some. It's still a very, very persistent problem. And I'm not sure why our sign says except local services, but it has created confusion. And I do think that the police, at least that part of the police department, understand it now. And we can't fault them for, needing a better interpretation. But I will tell you that the multi-axle vehicles still do not stay in their lanes when they're traveling down Hefner Road from Bryant towards I-35. That's a narrow 2-lane road. It has guardrails against the side, and the guardrails are pretty tight. And it continues to be a source of vehicle and pedestrian safety, pedestrian being the joggers that are on Hefner Road, and I think one of the other speakers will address a concern that the biking community has about that. So police enforcement is probably the only answer that's going to move the heavy vehicles off of Hefner onto the roads that were actually designed for heavy vehicles, and that would be Britain to our south and Memorial to our north. Another one of the speakers is going to help you enjoy some visibility on what we believe is a worsening engineering issue on Hefner Road, where some sheet piling is starting to sway and bend, and we don't know, but it's possible that that could be the result of a lot of heavy trucks going 55, 60 miles an hour. We're not sure. But I do want to thank the Commission for approving the 2-axle restriction. I want to thank the Oklahoma City Police Department for being super responsive. Major Dexter Nelson, who's now at Spring Lake, has gone out of his way to accommodate us. And we know that the police department is strapped. They don't have the number of cars, the number of officers to be there on a consistent basis. But if we could keep this going a couple of days a week for an hour or two at a time in different days, I think that we'll start to eat away at this. When these truckers get ticketed, many of them have to pay that ticket personally. But it is a huge safety issue for our neighborhood. This is a neighborhood, you'll recall, we don't have any side streets off of Hefner. We're trying to turn into our driveways when people are coming behind us at who knows what, 55, 60, breakneck speeds. Most of my neighbors have experienced situations where the cars in back of them skidded, their brakes locked, they went a little bit out of control as a neighbor was trying to turn into their yard. So we continue to have a speed issue on Hefner Road. The other thing I want to do is thank the city, Stuart, and your team, because we did get a speed cart put out there. On November 5th, the speed cart was there, and we now are in the early stages. Our neighbors are being able to assess, is there a positive impact with that flashing sign, giving the drivers the feedback on their speed? And there's some indication that there is positive, that there's folks that are slowing. And we know that if we ultimately buy those, I mean, if we get the driver feedback signs, we have to pay for that, but we have to be able to sell that to our neighbors. So the speed carts was a big plus for us, and we just want to thank you.
All right, very good.
We still would like to have the speed limit lowered. But
okay, and then we have several more that would like to talk, whatever order is best for you guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Brownell, and I live at 3312 East Hefner Road, Oklahoma City. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about the unsafe traffic conditions on East Hefner Road and the concerns of both our neighborhood residents and the city residents that use that road as a designated bike route. As Lance said, I'd like to thank the Commission for passing the 2-axle restriction in that the heavy truck traffic is a specific concern in this section of road, since the trucks routinely demonstrate they can't stay in their lane, especially traveling east down Hefner Road. The guide rail that Lance described, the end stops for the guide rail actually overhang the white line on the street. So you can imagine them coming down the street. They see that as a hazard. They move over. The car coming up the street sees them as a hazard and moves over, and now everybody's shifted over. Likewise, traveling in that same section of road, there's a stream that comes out of Camp DeConnie, and it actually comes right up to the base of the road and then runs along the road, and there's been sheet pile installed, I assume, to keep the road on the hill and not down in the stream. And as you drive up that road, what you'll notice with that sheet pile is that it's leaning out. I'm sure they didn't pound it in that way. It was pounded in straight, so it's creeping. Likewise, the guide rails that have been installed within the last 5 years or so in that same section of road are leaning downhill as well. So there's, some activity is occurring there that could be a problem as we continue further. So the second issue I'd like to address and raise with the Commission is the accident data that was presented in the staff report. We understood, we met with the Secretary and talked about the accident data and about the let's call it ambiguity of how it's collected and how it's placed into the system. I can tell you I've lived across the street from Camp DeConnie a little over 5 years, and in the time I've been there, there have been 3 rear-end collision accidents. Every one of them is a car traveling east, comes up over the, so they're at the stop sign, they start traveling east, there's a little flat stretch, then there's a little rise, and as they come over the rise, they start to encounter the cars that are turning into Camp DeConnie. And so that's where that occurs. Now, there is an advisory sign there that says, you know, hill blocks view, 30 miles an hour. I can't tell you that I've ever seen anybody slow down because they've seen the sign, but I have seen the aftermath and had folks come over and pull onto our lawn to try to get out of traffic because of the accidents that occurred there. Even though they don't show up in the traffic data, I can assure you they do occur. In fact, that whole stretch of road has many accidents that we don't see reflected in the information, including just on Halloween evening, there was a 3-car accident at the intersection of Bryant and Hefner. It's ongoing there. I'd like to thank the city again for the speed carts that were installed. They're actually installed right on the end of my driveway. Makes it pretty convenient for us as we sit in our den on the evenings. We can look out. They flash, the lights flash when someone's speeding. So you can, you know, as you're sitting there, you can see, okay, this guy's speeding, and the flashing stops when they slow down. It doesn't when they don't. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag as to whether it's a, you know, good or bad. The one that points to the west, the uphill side, has been intermittent in its workings, but recently when it was working, it actually did something different than the other cart, where when someone was speeding, it actually flashed like police car lights, red and white. I think they were up at the top. That seemed to have a different effect, for what that's worth. I also have spoken with some folks in the biking community, the bicycle community. They use Hefner Road, and I have a little bit of a statement. One of the gentlemen that leads a bike ride on Hefner Road 3 days a week wasn't able to be here today, but he did write something for us. Hefner Road is one of the most, if not the most, cycling trafficked roads in Oklahoma City. As a designated bike route and its access to the Jones, Oklahoma area, it is highly used by the cycling community Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Our group uses this access point multiple times, and our roads average 20 to 50 people. Our rides average 20 to 50 people. On the weekends, you'll see a consistent flow of riders using Hefner Road to get out into the countryside. With the Monday, Thursday, and Saturday rides that we lead out of the bike lab in Oklahoma City, the stretch of Hefner Road from Coltrane to Bryant is always the most congested, where we take extra measures to try and stay safe. There hasn't been a time that we've gone westbound and not had a line of trucks and cars behind us. This is why we pull off to the side of the road at Hefner and Bryant to let traffic get past us and on their way. At no other points in our rides, which average 28 to 45 miles, does this happen. Anecdotally, some of the things he was going to add, but unfortunately wasn't here, was that in their entire ride, this is the only section where they feel threatened. And specifically, large trucks and cars, as they climb the hill up Hefner Road, which is really one of the reasons why they want to ride that road, is because of that hill. And I know we've talked with the secretary, and he's agreed and requested no passing zone signs. They likewise, the bicyclists, so can you imagine 50 folks on bicycles riding up that road and cars just flying by them, passing in a no passing zone, and trucks doing the same thing. So he described how they ride this, where they have a lead rider and a tail rider. Everybody's almost single file, and then they put 2 guys out towards the middle of the lane to try to protect those other riders who aren't maybe as used to having a car go flying by them. And also with the addition of the guide rails, there's no place for them to go. So, and then last, I'd like to talk about the staff recommendation to not approve the speed restriction. I understand the speed studies I understand the concern that lowering the speed limit will make more people violators. I have to say I'm surprised that what seems to be our major decision factor is the current speed of people on the road as opposed to the safety of the road at that speed. It's a little mind-boggling to me. It's kind of like, well, if everybody's speeding, the answer is we raise the speed limit, not hold people accountable to the speed that's there. I understand the value of keeping the traffic moving and trying to avoid congestion, but I would offer that a 5-mile-an-hour speed zone change over a 1-mile stretch of road is not going to increase congestion, but it may slow those folks down and give them a little more pause. This weekend, on the other end of Hefner Road, just as it comes out to Broadway Extension, there was a car rollover where I have to assume speed was involved. I drove by it. A pickup truck busted off the driver's side wheel and rolled the car in a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone. Now, and the police have been enforcing, thank goodness, on both ends of the road, and we hope to see a change. But this has become a little speedway. And you can, if you drive the road, you can see the burnout marks at the lights and the stop signs where people are doing this because they feel like they can. And the only way we fix it is to enforce it. I understand the commission's recommendation, or the staff's recommendation that says we don't recommend you lower it because in the absence of enforcement, there's not going to be a change. But what we're asking for is let's lower it and let's enforce it and see if we can get the trucks using the 4 lanes that are built for them and get the people to slow down so somebody doesn't get killed here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We have one more. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Trav Brown. I live at 3001 East Hefner Road, which is the northeast corner of Hefner and Bryant. And I want to address, I didn't want to repeat everything they said, but my biggest concern is the intersection itself. I don't know how the traffic accidents report work out, but since in the last 60 days, I didn't know about the Halloween wreck, but I have seen 4 wrecks at that intersection since then. One of them was even a hit and run with a young kid on a motorcycle, and they left him in the intersection and left his motorcycle up against our gates there at the intersection. 2 of the wrecks were the exact same day because the same officers were working the wreck. It was a Friday afternoon, and there were ambulance and fire trucks there. Of course, I know they always come because there's a fire station just a mile away. But something really needs to be done to warn people about the intersection. I think most people who run the intersection are doing it even though they know it's a 4-way stop. Because I was here in July and expressed my wife and I's concern that we sit on our deck at night eating dinner. We don't anymore. It gets too dark and cold. But you sit there and you hear the cars accelerate as they go west. They come up over the hill and they accelerate to blow through the intersection. And they mentioned Dexter. Dexter Nelson's a client of mine. I'm going to see if he can come out and just sit on the deck one Friday afternoon. Paco and Kyle have been clients for over 20 years, and I know he's too busy with his new role. But I'm going to see if Dexter will come out. I know Spring Lake's a huge division. There's a lot of just open land in the police division itself, but it is a concern. Also, too, I heard some numbers about the traffic count on Hefner compared to the traffic count on Britton Road, which is 4-lane. And that there's an Amazon facility about 1/8 of a mile east of I-35 on the north side of Hefner. And all those gray and white vans go down Hefner Road. I mean, it's like, go kick an ant pile, and that's what it looks like. I'm an early riser. At 5:20, they start coming down Hefner. And there can be 14 to 20, 25 of them in a row. And I guarantee you they do not adhere to the speed limit. They are scooting down. My wife works out of our house, and she says at noon, it's almost like a second shift goes by, and they are just flying down. They're scooting through the intersection without coming to a complete stop. I'm not anti-Amazon. That's just an example. I will tell you this. If we could get a little more police enforcement, Midwest Wrecking, DeLisi Cement, and Swartz Cement, when they start getting tickets from their drivers because they have 5 axles on their trucks, 2 are raised if they're empty, and the dump trucks that go out that way too. The two axles that are raised going out, but they're down coming back to the west, which means they're bringing back sand, is what they're doing. But they get 8 or 10 tickets for violating the excess of 2 axles. The ownership of those companies are going to tell those drivers, do not go down Hefner Road. But it's just going to take, I think, some enforcement on the city's part more than anything else. And I guess if I want to reiterate anything, it would just be the people blowing through the intersection. We're going to lose somebody, and I don't want it to be a friend or a neighbor. And I just think that's Cara, my wife. That's my wife and I's biggest concern, is the people who just willingly blow through the intersection. And it's and I encourage. I'll buy you an iced tea if you want to come sit on the deck some Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. It's Friday afternoon at 4. I'm not home very much, but Friday afternoons and Saturday morning, real quick and I'll finish. About 4 weeks ago, I was doing the last mowing of the yard. And from 7:30 to 10:30, I counted 37 trucks that violated the 2 axle signs that were right there. And that was just when I was driving towards the gate, not when I had my back heading back up the yard, but I counted 37 in 3 hours. So, and once again, I'm not picking on those companies, but those are the ones who violate it more than anybody else. They are all over it. So I appreciate your time. Tell Dexter I appreciate getting officers out there. My wife says they don't have time for donuts. She said they are just pull one over, go the other direction to get another speeder. And we do appreciate what you guys have done, okay? Thank you all.
All right. Anybody else want to speak on item 5R? Okay, staff.
Sorry, thank you. You've got our comments before you. One thing I want to, up on the screen now before you, in some of our follow-up meetings with area residents, we did do some supplemental speed studies. This is from the tail end of July, in which case we went out and looked at the speeding breakdown, or the actual speed breakdown on Hefner Road. This is between 4 and 6 p.m. Right now you can see that about 2% of drivers are currently doing about 35 miles an hour on this stretch. Of course, it is posted 40. We got about a 10% compliance rate of drivers adhering to the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. And this is out of a sample size of 475 vehicles, so this is not a small sample. Currently, we're running an 85th percentile, close to 51 miles an hour. The request before you is to consider taking the speed limit from 40 to 35. On page 5 of your report, what we've got is a summary of items of other locations where the Commission has looked at streets and has approved speed limit reductions. We've got MacArthur Britton, Northwest 23rd Street, Rockwell Morgan, and a section of West Hefner Road that are on there. And in these cases, you can see where we had speeds that were all reduced by basically 5 miles an hour. In the case of MacArthur, it went from a posted speed limit of 45 and has now been reposted at 40. Our speed studies conducted before the speed limit showed that drivers were typically running around 46 miles an hour on it. Well after the speed limit was changed, they were still running anywhere from 46 to 49 miles an hour on the roadway. So while some of the points that were made in certain locations, if for your typical driver, the appropriate speed would be in the neighborhood of, like, say, 40 or 45 miles an hour. That's what you'll find that most people are doing and will continue to do. It would take probably an extraordinary amount of enforcement, a consistent enforcement, in order to affect a long-term change in driver behavior. So it's not that lowering the speed limit would be inherently bad for a location like this. It would be inherently difficult to consistently enforce. And our track record with making reductions, to address, citizen safety requests has been met with probably not the best enforcement, or, they're not great self-enforcing regulations. One thing I can tell you, some of the people that have come out to talk on this item, is last week we were contacted by our traffic operations group, and they've now got funding to purchase the LED enhanced stop signs, which will be going up on all 4 approaches over at Bryant and Hefner. So those are on order now. And other than that, I don't have any further comments on this particular item, so I'm happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have if you want to discuss the application before them.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5R?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to disapprove this request. And I do it with a little bit of concern for the road user and the thought that by lowering this to 35, which only 2% of the drivers they've noticed doing that, and then asked enforcement to go out there and work that at that speed limit, a regulatory speed limit, they would have to stop 15 to 20 cars an hour. That's physically impossible. And then to set it that low, you violate driver's expectancy. They're going down the road. They expect to be able to travel that. I agree. There's whoever designed the road, the guardrail's pretty close, but it's a little close on the west of Bryant too. And the speed limit over there is 45. So I can't, based on this data that the staff's put together here and my knowledge of setting speed limits, working with the Department of Transportation, I just cannot approve that.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Where'd it come from? Okay. From Commissioner Varnell. So we have a motion to disapprove from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Do we have any talk on this item? Well, okay, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, so we're going to put in the flashing LEDs at the four-way stop. So that's going to help, hopefully, on that issue to make sure it's clear that there's a stop sign there. You guys are thinking about maybe buying your own speed cart? Is that what's a speed cart cost? Any idea?
Well, probably the driver speed feedback signs. They've got so many different size options, message options, and things like that, and powering options, whether it's powered off of like a local power supply or it's got its own solar power supply. But those, I think they're typically running in the neighborhood of about $2,000 or more per unit.
Okay, and they can just put that up on their own, or do they come to you and you install?
That is right now. That is the one item that's been approved as part of the ASAP program, where they can just come in and basically through the revocable permitting process get something like that installed. Actually, I take that back. They won't do it through the revocable permitting process. They will buy those items, furnish them to the city, and the city will take care of their installation. Right.
Okay, yeah, so that's a new program we have where local areas can buy that kind of stuff and the city would install it. And then when it breaks, it goes back to them, right?
Right, yeah, because
they have to maintain.
Right, because we don't have the funding source to maintain things like that.
And is there anything else that can be done? I know we have deferred this for months just so we could brainstorm. Besides you being out there every day, and is there anything else we can do to slow it down and make it safer? Any other signage, anything? Yes, sir.
From what I've heard described today, as far as blowing through the intersections between the speed, I'm not sure that signage is going to change a lot of that, because it sounds like a willingness on the people that use this road to break the law. So it sounds like the true solution is going to be enforcement.
So let me ask, if we're thinking it's a certain companies, 3 or 4 companies, is that their responsibility to call the president and CEO of those companies? Does the city get involved and maybe send in a letter to say, hey, could you tell your people not to be on that road? How does that normally work?
Well, ordinarily, once the regulation is posted, there's not any follow-up on our part. But we'd be willing to, if the applicant wants to furnish us with a short list of companies that they think that we ought to correspond with, just to advise them of this particular restriction and how it applies, we can intercede on your behalf, and we can author some letters and send them out.
And maybe that'll hit, half of their vehicles at least, or whatever you think the right number is. So if there's certain companies that you were talking about that you think if they get advised of the change, and what the rules are, so they can let all their drivers know and their dispatchers and all that kind of stuff know. So that's something that the city can do.
Yeah, because, I mean, the residents got the local experience, and they know which companies they've seen operating like that. And if they want to provide us a list of those particular firms, yeah, we'll author a letter and send it out to that effect.
Okay. And yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we would be happy to provide that information, and I do think that coming under the city letterhead just to advise those companies that these signs have been posted and that there will be patrols to enforce it is a lot better than us trying to work with the dispatch manager or perhaps even meeting with the president. So I think that's a great initiative there. Okay. You asked earlier, are there any other signs? And we visited with Stewart's staff about this one topic, but, you know, we have Camp Dakani there, and it's not a school. And it doesn't qualify for school zone signage or school zone speed restrictions. But there's a couple of hundred kids a day that go to Camp Dakani for outings and so forth. And, of course, they have summer programs. If there was signage, and I don't know that the city even has these, you know, children in the area or residential neighborhood, just to let people know. Again, you can put too many signs up to where the drivers just, you know, they get information overload. But the truckers and many of the speeders, I'm pretty sure, are not thinking about kids. They probably aren't even thinking about this being a residential area. So if there are signs that could help impart awareness to the drivers that this is a residential area, moderate your speed, I don't know if maybe that would help.
No, there are advisory signs that the camp could put up or the city put up that says camp entrance or it's...
Well, and there is one already that I think says bus entrance. There's probably two of those, one each direction.
But something that just says, you know, camp entrance, children present or something like that.
I think the children thing, again, I don't know, you all
hear
these things more than we do, but it's just obvious that there's people that just they're not aware, or they're aware and they just don't care. And that's where the police really, they represent a force multiplier for us, you know, is just letting drivers understand that you're doing this and you've made a conscious decision to violate the law. You're not doing local services here. And that kind of enforcement.
I've seen signs where it says children at play or something, or children present or something like that. Is that a neighborhood issue where they would buy the sign and we'd put it up, or how does that work?
Our policy when it comes to like a watch for children warning sign is we will let like area residents purchase signs, and typically they're installed within neighborhoods. So if they can find a property owner that does not have any objection to having one placed in front of their yard, you know, in the right-of-way next to their property, we take care of the installation of things like that for them. But as far as that being an effective speed control device, it's not been our experience that it produces
we're just pulling
meaningful results.
We're just pulling straws. But that's something that could happen, is have a children present sign put up on private property, paid for by the neighborhood, installed by the city. And you could help them to get that sign made or figure out where to go make that sign?
Yeah, they would furnish it. Right. And our traffic operations group would install it. But
right. But we would be able to help them know where to go get that, because I wouldn't know where to go get a sign.
Oh, yeah. Well, anymore, you can just hit the internet, and there's any number of resources for having custom signs like that fabricated. And what most people do is they'll just shop around for the best price they can get.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other talk on item 5R? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5R from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item's disapproved. Okay, we go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody else need to speak? Okay, we go to reports. Other commissioners. We'll start over here at Ward 1. Commissioner Varnell.
None for me.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Russell.
Nothing here.
Commissioner Hale.
Just real quickly, the Oklahoma Boulevard, evidently there's a difference between east and west speed limits.
Actually, we just completed a survey of the speed limit signs that ODOT has got installed along the roadway. Is there a particular location where something's been observed that's unusual?
45 westbound, 55 coming in eastbound. From Lee west, it's 45. My experience, unless something's changed, that it's 55 coming in eastbound, coming off the interstate.
It's the same road. It's on the same, just different sides.
Near Lee Avenue?
Lee west is 45 all the way till you get out onto the interstate.
Okay, because that would be contradictory to what we just had surveyed, but I'll have it rechecked. Because I was about to say, because from about where at the west end of the boulevard between starting where Reno Avenue crosses, or should I say the boulevard crosses diagonally across Reno, that section of the boulevard has been signed at 25 from there up until you get to a point that's about east of Oklahoma Avenue. That section of the boulevard is signed at 25. If there's a 55 or 45 mile an hour sign in that stretch, it's errantly installed.
This is just coming off the highway westbound, and then goes 55, 45. And, what was your...
I'm not familiar with it. I just had a constituent ask me about it. In fact, I've had more than one about why there is that difference, but it's significant. The term speed trap was used.
No, because the speed limit is, like on the east end of the boulevard, as you've exited from from the I-235 and I-40 off ramps onto the boulevard, it does have to step down in accordance with state law in 10 mile an hour increments. It steps down 55, 45, 35, and so by the time you get just, I think, to the east of Oklahoma Avenue, the speeds drop down to 25 miles an hour. And then it's consistent like that all the way through the heart of the downtown core till you cross Lee and getting towards where the boulevard crosses Reno Avenue. And then from there it steps up to 35, and then once you get out, I think beyond Klein, it then steps back up to 45, and then from there on out, you're basically on a highway on-ramp.
And my only concern, this is what I've noticed because I drive the Lee stretch, is that it just stays 45 for a long time until it doesn't seem like it should be 45. I do that.
Okay, go to Commissioner Schuline.
Just want to thank Sergeant Bales again. I know he's been really busy in the last couple of months, and we really appreciate all your fine work.
Go to Commissioner Miller.
No comment, sir.
Commissioner George. Commissioner Milner.
No comments. Thank you.
Captain, you got anything?
No, sir. I'll make sure this information gets relayed to Spring Lake and Major Nelson.
Okay. Right. All right, staff. Counselor, sorry. Nothing? Staff?
Okay, you've got our standard monthly report of yield signs. Well, this time we didn't have any administrative parking controls, and I just want to wish all members of the commission, other staff here, a happy Thanksgiving next week.
All right, any other business for the Traffic Commission? All right, we stand adjourned.